Hi everyone, we're live. Welcome in and welcome to our panel, Esports for Everyone, where myself and my lovely guests are going to talk about what diversity is in esports and what we can do to help everyone feel welcome and safe in the environment. But before we get started, got some housekeeping to do. So Gaming Live is presented by Healthysexual from Gilead Sciences, and the Community Zone is sponsored by Remag, a new place to connect with gamers in your community. Thanks to both of them for their support in making this happen. Thanks very much, Gilead Sciences and Remag. So, I thought we would start by introducing ourselves. My name is Emma, or MZ. I'm a loud, proud transgender woman from the UK and a professional gamer and content creator. And I'm going to pass it over to Joy because she's this side.
I'm on that side indeed. Hey everyone, I'm Joy or Joy K, however you would like to call me. I'm a freelance esports broadcast talent, so I'm a play-by-play caster or an interviewer.
Which way are we going?
We're going to you. We're going downstairs now. Chris, take it away.
Yeah, I'm Chris. I'm a consultant for the video games and esports space. I've been around esports since before it was called esports, very long time. Very vocal ally to the community, and do what I can to help you lucky people on this panel and who's watching today as well. So we'll go that way.
Cool. So to finish it off, I'm John Jackson. I'm CEO of Esports Wales. We've been running sort of Esports Wales for about sort of 4 years, and it's developing everything really from grassroots talent all the way up to sort of professional level, where we take in sort of teams or the Welsh team around the world to play in international tournaments.
Awesome. So now that you know everyone, and we're all now best friends, let's dive straight into the panel and what this is about. So, the title of the panel is Esports for Everyone. So, as you can guess, it's obviously about diversity and inclusivity. So, whoever wants to answer first, what does inclusivity mean to you in the context of esports, and why is it important? Who wants to go first?
Should we go the other way? Should I go first?
Yeah.
So I guess for us, from our point of view for esports, it's one of the selling points, especially sort of having esports within Wales and sort of the scene, is the inclusivity side. There is no sort of gender divide within esports. Everyone can jump in, everyone can play. There's where I sort of coming back from a traditional sporting background or looking at a lot of traditional sporting backgrounds. There's a lot of sort of gender divide. There's a lot of physical divide. Just sort of finished watching the Welsh rugby team play. But most of those are sort of 6 foot odd, playing these days, sort of in the gym 24/7, sort of preparing to play rugby. And it's a case for esports is you haven't got those things. So it's one of the great things about it is bringing people from all walks of life together, all ages together, all sort of genders together, and playing games together and enjoying it. And I think that's from sort of the esports world's perspective, one of the sort of great things about esports, and sort of we continue to try and champion that and make sure that it's inclusive as possible, really.
Nice. Chris, anything to add?
Yeah, what John said, basically. No,
that's why I like going last. I get to just say
yeah, I mean, whenever you get those sort of questions, it's exactly what John said. It's gaming is for everybody, and everybody on this panel are obviously massive gamers as well. Gaming is awesome, and esports is by its very nature, the competitive side is equally awesome. And as the tagline says, esports is for everybody, just as gaming is for everybody. So what inclusivity means is that, for me anyway, and growing up, competitive gaming in the 80s and then quite heavily in the 90s as well, it wasn't inclusive. It sucked. And gaming should be a safe space for anybody to be able to play. And clearly we know there is still pockets of areas within competitive video gaming where it is not, whether or not it's in particular scenes or particular titles or regions. But from the grassroots work that I do to consulting, it's just hammering home that esports is for everyone. I mean, that tagline says it all. More people that for people that don't understand it, and thankfully we're not coming up against too many people that don't understand why esports should be everybody. There's still people out there, but the more people that play, the more awesome it is. I mean, you've got more people watching, more people playing, more people learning about these titles, which means sponsors are happy, which means more money comes in, which means it seems like a no-brainer when you sort of lay it out like that. And why shouldn't esports be inclusive? But yeah, for what John said, plus that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I mean, a lot has already been said, right? Like, it's the first thing that you're getting to the fundamental of inclusivity, right? It's like everyone is welcome, and then I think the biggest obstacle is to try and create these equal chances for everyone. That, like, we should be looking at everyone should have an equal opportunity to be here because everyone deserves a chance to be here, to be in this esports space. I think that's the only thing I really have to add to everything that's already been said.
Yeah, I think like I this is why I like going last, because I don't have to then really say anything. It's great. Esports is gaming. Gaming is for everyone. So esports is there for everyone. And somewhere along the line, barriers have been put up, and we're all working on bringing them down. And that's why it's important, because it is for everyone. What then, guys, are some of the barriers then towards inclusivity in esports? And if you can think of how we overcome them, then give an example, maybe.
I mean, I can jump
Where I
in.
start.
Well, you go for Joe. Go on, Joe.
I can go. I can go. Great. I mean, the first one that you think of right away, right, is gender, and everything around it. And it very quickly then becomes the narrative of men versus the rest, which is not really a narrative that I'm personally a fan of, because I think that just adds fuel to the fire of, like, it's us against them. I don't think that works. I think that's a barrier that, like, we should try to break. And yeah, as I said, like, working about getting people more comfortable with each other, but also showing that there's an opportunity for mixed gender teams, and that is possible. That makes that easier, that opens up that narrative a little bit more. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Mixed teams
I
would be the
do.
stick.
Yeah, I'd add to that. I think one of the barriers I'll be trying to focus on answering the conversation, on answering the question, which I'm not really good at doing on panels like this, but I'm going to do my best. Is fear of conversation. Is having that, if you whether or not you're running a grassroots tournament or a larger one, and you're engaging with sponsors, it's having an individual or individuals involved in that who are brave enough to have those conversations, brave enough to put their hands up and say, you know what's happening here sucks. It's not right. It shouldn't happen. For people sometimes to stand up and have those conversations it can be quite frightening if they feel that they're in the minority, or they're going to piss off the sponsor, or they're going to piss off the all governments, and so that barrier of feeling to be judged or say the wrong thing is still sadly alive and well. And sometimes all it needs is that conversation, just to kickstart things and say, okay, well, we're going to have a difficult or a challenging conversation, but we've got to talk about it. We've got to air it. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest barriers still that remains is being able to have those difficult conversations.
Yeah. I think I sort of agree with the last 2 points. But I think for sort of my side, it's probably down to sort of regulation in some regards. I think it's like we kind of said at the start, esports is for everyone, and that has differences in some cases to a traditional sport. And I'm sort of, we think esports should sort of link up the best way it can with traditional sport. But in doing so, this is probably a new problem, which in sort of when you look at sort of sport in the for generations and such, it's kind of been, well, you've got sort of you've got these sort of groups which you under 18s, under 16s, sort of men's team, women's team, and sort of those groups which everyone sort of fits into and plays because of the physical levels. We haven't got that with esports, so in doing so, removes all those groups and changes the divide. So we're changing sort of a bit of a culture change, really, on how to do it, and it's kind of how to regulate that, because I think it's because of that previous sort of culture change or sort of way to sort of see it. We either replicate it and put that into esports, but there's no real need for that. So it's a case of having that regulation. And what you want to do is sort of make sure, like, esports is very new, so it's coming through. And a lot of people are still very young to the scene and sort of still developing it. So a lot of them taking sort of previous sort of sporting backgrounds, sporting models, and sort of applying it to esports, but it doesn't really fit. And in doing so, even the sort of coaching methods between different teams and different sort of genders and different sort of people as such is very different. Coaching, as I said, professional rugby team to coaching sort of an up and coming Valorant team who sort of mixed gender and things like that. So it's having those changes and sort of working that into esports. And I think with regulation and sort of with sort of educating the scene, I think that'll lead to sort of a better, more inclusive environment. And that's how we can sort of build that in. But I think it'll come in time. But I think that's one of the big barriers at the moment is sort of that regulation and sort of education within the scene. And in doing so, what we're learning, like sort of learning from traditional sport, but then realizing we're esports, not sport, so we need to tweak a few things when it comes across and sort of develop from that.
Mm-hmm. Not to hijack the questions, but that was a really good point. But do you think, I suppose across for the whole panel, that punishments are severe enough? Or you talk about regulation, where's the, if you're going to regulate something, do you think the punishment is harsh enough at the moment? But then who brings that punishment habit out?
Yeah.
Is it developers? Is it?
I think sort of jumping in there, that's kind of one of the things with Esports Wales. We are sort of the sort of national body for Wales. The idea being is that, like you would have a membership of a sporting federation, you're accountable then to that. You're playing in leagues. There is a sort of code of conduct. If you do not follow that code of conduct, then you'll not be allowed to play in future tournaments. You're not be allowed to play for your country. You're not going to be allowed to sort of move up and play in that. And in doing so, then it's instilling that sort of you're going into a game and you can't behave sort of in an incorrect way as such. You should be following the code of conduct, and in doing so, with everything, people you have bad games, you can get sort of a bit upset with having those bad games, and that's understandable. But it's a case of how you can potentially deal with that and how you can sort of build up. And I think in doing so, that's where you start getting those structures. Now, I think it's a combination where you said sort of publishers or sort of, I guess, like federations or sort of bodies and things. I think it's a case of having the publishers working with the likes of the federations and create that structure and sort of you're playing in this league, especially in sort of schools, colleges, sort of structures. For us with our sort of Discord channel, I'm sure there's very few Discord communities that do DBS checks on their moderators. But Esports Wales, we do, to make sure that it is a sort of safe and inclusive environment, but making sure that sort of our volunteers and stuff have gone through the process and checks to make sure that's what we want to deliver. And I think it's working in a combination. I don't think it's one person can sort of stand up because everyone else go, oh, I don't want to really do safeguarding and talks and policies and stuff. But in working together, I think we can get a structure will sort of fit, and then in doing so, we can instill that sort of education, instill that sort of regulation within the whole scene.
Yeah, I think publishers also need to help though. It's all well and good, like you have in your Esports Wales and your other companies, orgs, and teams that actually have safeguarding and have a clear guidebook, and this is how you should behave, and this is what will not be tolerated, and this is how you basically be a decent human being. I think the IP owners themselves need to do a tremendous amount more than what is already done, because just banning someone or chat banning someone for a day or a week or whatever doesn't stop anything. I mean, these companies have all our details. Whenever we have to sign up to play a game, and you want to play online now, you probably have your phone number in there for a two-factor authenticator. You probably have email addresses. You have your name. IPs could very easily just be done. They could just be like, okay, you've been the most toxic little child that has ever came across our game. You're not playing anymore. Like, we're going to completely take away your ability to harass other people. And they can do that by just turning off their chat account. Let them play away, but turn off their chat account. Don't let them have any communication with other people. And yes, that seems harsh, but when you're on the other end of the abuse, it's only so much you can take, right? And not everyone is as thick skinned as some of us are, and that is the point. So I think the IP owners need to actually start stepping in and start handing out harder and more harsher bans.
I agree with you. Oh, sorry, Chris, do you want to go?
No, I was just saying that I 100% agree. I think, but we're also talking about fans, and then we're talking about players as well.
Yeah.
And I think I agree though that the publishers, if you were to base it on like a MAC address, or it's tied to your unique serial number and whatever it may be, I'm no longer techie enough to know what that is, but a MAC address or something that links to your GPU or something. It's like, right, that if I'm a horrible human being, and
Which you're not, just for clarification.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But yeah, if someone is that toxic and does that, then the repercussions are heavy. And I think I think we all would in one day, that there's like a tri-party or multiple party agreement between Valve, between the big publishers, and then your 3-strike rule, and then they lose their access to their Steam account, or they lose whatever it may be. Yeah. And like you said, they have the power to do that.
Yeah, if I sort of jump in, so I agree that it should be down to some publishers. I think some of the issues which we face there is the publishers tend to not be one country, and they're sort of they'll be spread, like if you're sort of, it might be like EU West or sort of those sides, but each country has their own sort of different values, and what is deemed appropriate in one country might not be appropriate in another country. So enforcing it from one publisher would be very difficult from a publisher's point of view. At the end of the day, the business isn't doing that, and I think that's why they need to work with the sort of national federations as such to sort of feed into that and kind of have it. But again, rather than it being it's sort of blocked with your IP address or MAC address. Like I know so many gamers who've got sort of multiple Smurf accounts and things like that who sort of play on those. So you ban one, it doesn't matter because they got another 10, and it's so easy to create a new one because most of these esports games are free anyway. So I think it needs to sort of link back to one account, which is then linked to could be like passport, driving license, accredited or validated in the background with something like that to show this is me as an online presence. This is my gamer account linked to that, and if I've behaved badly on that account, it then sort of has been like this. But I also think that when I sort of you say ban them, I would also look or like to see, rather than it being not sort of a blanket ban, but more of an educational program which they need to go on, and give them a chance to go, all right, you made a mistake, you sort of you didn't understand what you were saying was that hurtful. You didn't understand that sort of you speaking to other people online. Some of these people are coming from gaming against sort of AI or sort of sort of just general playing games, and then when they move into esports, they might not sort of initially see at the start that you're playing against real people, and sort of react in that way. So I think there's also sort of having that education and sort of feeding into that as well.
Yeah. I think that's like a key point as well, is that we don't want to just ban people. We want to help educate them and give them a chance to do better. Like I think the bans would only be severe when people refuse to learn or refuse to even try to be better and just keep repeat offending. But that actually leads us on nicely into the next question. So what else could we do to make a safer space, or to help safeguarding people online from harassment and bullying and other general forms of toxic behavior within esports?
Well, I think that educating is one that we discussed now a lot, and that is a really good one. I think that you hit the nail on its head, saying like that educating others instead of just banning an account and taking it away is much better. People then learn to just, they learn the weight of their words that they're using, and also it doesn't fuel the fire of hatred even more by like, oh, like I can just imagine people getting even more angry. Oh, my account got taken away now. I'll make a new one and I'll be even worse. Kind of. I'll get them back, and you don't want that.
No.
So I think educating is a great idea. I also think taking people under your wing is a great idea. People just stepping up, putting themselves out there, and being like, hey, I will foster this environment to be a safe space, and for it to be somewhere where you can be yourself, but also where you can make mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, like I agree with 2 points. I think the only things which really to add on there is having the platforms in place. There's still sort of stuff in development, and sort of needs to be developed to have better spaces for these. It's great to, everyone's on the internet. It's great that we've got sort of social media and got everything there, but in some cases, it doesn't come across the best way. Someone writes sort of one tweet, and that might sort of, then sort of snowball into something else, and then there's sort of, it turns into this massive thing from a miscommunication or like a quick Discord message or something like that, and sort of blows up or sort of is seen in the wrong way. And as you said, becomes this argument then of I'll get them back or I'll do this, and sort of building and heat of the moment with some of the games and things like that. So I think it's sort of having that system or better systems in place to sort of safeguard people, better platforms in place to kind of mitigate any sort of less abusing. Like we've got like auto mod and stuff like that in Discord, which is great. A feature which we've got running in our Discord, but that's only coming or only sort of developing in the last few years. Prior to that, we didn't have it, and Twitter's kind of going the other way in some regards, where it's more sort of, I guess, freedom of speech, but it's sort of where do you draw the line between that being freedom of speech and being harassment to people, and harassment of the scene, and how to sort of facilitate against that. But I think having better platforms and having better sort of not regulation, but sort of structure in place for those may help.
I think some of it lies with sponsors as well. So if you have certain sponsors, I mean, if we focus just from an esports point of view, when you get to kind of T2, TM1, without sponsors, these orgs don't function. There's no money coming into the org. And I think sponsors need to be educated more, a bit more active and braver to say, look, just like in traditional sports, but and the penalties. But if let's say it's, let's say Red Bull, because they're active and they've been in the industry for such a long time, that if they see certain activity happening in a particular org scene and they're actively involved in it, and they say, well, look, unless you as an org and you've got all of these fans or these players that look up to this org and say, look, we're going to pull our sponsorship if you don't do something about it. And that's where then the org and the players have to step up and say, look, this sort of behavior isn't acceptable, because if there's no sponsorship, they're not getting paid. But at the moment, I think, as we've all seen, it's left until it gets to the absolute extreme, and then it's like, oh, we're really sorry, and this isn't acceptable. But I think if sponsors take more of an active role and see what's actually happening, and those individuals within sponsors are saying, well, look, play. I mean, we've all seen it's happened in traditional sports, and we've seen some of it in esports, where guy will play as a female or somebody from the LGBTQ community and play as them, and they're like, holy shit, I didn't realize actually how severe the abuse was, and put the sponsors in that, get Mr. Red Bull in that position. It's like, wow, okay, we're going to think twice now before we sign our checks, because this is our brand and it's our association. It's a little bit extreme, but it's something I've thought about in the past before on panels like this.
I don't think it's that extreme though. Like at the end of the day, if you are sponsored by a certain brand or company, you are representing them as much as you're representing yourselves. So, if you come out and be toxic and damage your your own reputation and your org's reputation, you're also damaging that sponsor's reputation. But for some reason, that doesn't happen in esports. Like for some reason, you could be sponsored by Red Bull, come out and say the most like horrific thing ever, and you'll get dropped from your team. But Red Bull, it's like, okay, we're still going to sponsor this team because that's just one individual. So they need to start. Yeah, I agree that they need to start like.
I think that's changing as such. One of the things we do when we're doing talks within Wales, or sort of I'm doing talks within Wales and speaking to sort of youngsters coming through and sort of about selection if they wanted to play for Wales. One of the things I sort of remind them of is watch where you like. If you're posting stuff on Twitter, even if you posted it like 3 years ago, if you joined in a team, people will look at that as an example of hiring or getting you into a team. They will look at your behavior, whether you're sort of raging, how you're speaking about your previous teammates, how you're speaking against your previous team. They will look sort of your likes, your sort of comments. And in doing so, if you behave in that way, like we wouldn't have you. We definitely wouldn't have you representing Wales, but we wouldn't like to sort of have you in the team and sort of building that. So it's a case of I think with that it is changing because sort of realizing it and having the sponsors coming in while you can sort of say, oh, we didn't expect the player to do that. It's you want to sort of as soon as something like that happens, especially as a team manager or org manager, you want to stamp that out quite quick because I think there's a few teams sort of recently I've seen in the scene with sponsorship pulled from some of the companies which you've said because of behavior within those organizations.
And just to say, I think Red Bull are fantastic, by the way. I know some people that work for Red Bull. I just looked at it as an example.
To put a target on them, no, of course.
No,
I think it was a good example, nonetheless, and because
everyone
it is
knows
in
Red
the
Bull.
end, it's everyone's responsibility. It's not just the players, it's not just the orgs, it's everyone.
And hopefully, with the esports landscape is constantly changing, but I hope that ideal would be that sponsors don't gravitate to orgs that have the most subscribers or the most trophies in their cupboard. What they're gravitating towards is, look, we're going to put our brand or our name towards an org that meets our values, is actually a good org that we can be aligned with from a sponsorship point of view, and not just drawn to, all right, what's your sub count? How many eyeballs you've got? That would be nice.
Yeah. I agree with that. It's sort of, as much as it's numbers at the moment, we're trying to build the scene, and in doing so, if you build in the wrong area, it's just going to cause more issues within the scene. Like having those structures and links, build in those areas. I think that will allow for sort of a stronger industry going forward and a lot more sort of sustainable industry going forward. Whereas at the moment, it's someone says someone does something, there's a sort of drama and everything starts again, and
and then that a part of it, like the drama then causes people to be seen more and gain more following, and then that makes them seen by more people to get more sponsors. So like it's kind of almost rewarding that kind of behavior because you're then seen in the public eye. But we've actually rattled through quite a lot of our points there, so we're going to move on away from sponsorships, and what can we do to ensure esports competitions are fair and accessible to all people, regardless of their background or skill level? What do we think we could do there to help promote a more even playing field?
it's very difficult. Sort of coming. One of the things which I'm doing at the moment is sort of running the Welsh Esports League. Welsh Esports League is open to every level. It's a very difficult one to fit everyone in the same league. And sort of in doing so, it's down to skill brackets. So they are like sort of things which you can put in place, Swiss tournament models, and then feeding into different divisions and different sort of levels, which means it's competitive. Because if you go up against someone who's just sort of a massive difference in skill level, you don't get much out of that game. You lose the game. It's sort of not fulfilling in any way. It doesn't feel competitive. It's not good to watch. And sort of doesn't fit in. So it's one of the things we've got to do is build that. There are other things as well. Is like our tournaments are all mixed. It's a case of how do we increase sort of marginalized genders coming into those tournaments, and how do we build that up? Now, in some cases, it's a case of you run separate leagues, which allows to facilitate that in. It allows to sort of, as I said before, with in regards to sort of coaching and stuff, to sort of tailor in the right way, make sure there's no toxicity within that environment and people to grow. But in doing so, then at some point, there will be that sort of switch again, and there'll be mixed teams. So it's around the education of both areas as well, and sort of fitting in. So I think there's a few combination of things, but I don't think there's a quick fix.
No.
There's just sort of really multiple structures.
Yeah, I think like just to touch on what you said there about like the mixed leagues becoming the separated leagues becoming the mixed leagues. I think it's like it's just a means to an end currently, right? In a pure numbers game. Like if you think of the amount of guys that are gaming and into esports at the moment, like if you were just go, okay, tomorrow everything is open, it's mixed teams, everyone competes against everyone in a sheer numbers basis, you're only maybe like showcasing the top 2% of non-male talent, as opposed to if you have a separate league or a separate competition, you get to showcase the top 20%, and then those people get to go on and learn their skills because they get to play against people of a higher level. They get to experience what it's like to play at lands and play at those high stakes competitions, because you're never going to improve skill wise just playing in your bedroom all the time. You're going to have to go out there, you're going to have to go to lands, you're going to have to go to tournaments, and sort of feel that pressure of what it's like playing with a live crowd, with a production team, with in live casters, with like everything. You get on stage and you get given sound cancelling headphones so you can't hear anything else, and the first thing you hear is your heartbeat and you're like, okay, I'm on stage, what do I do? How do I play my own game? It's completely different. But I think it is a means to an end, and just from a sheer numbers game, so that we can give more non-males that experience to then compete eventually in a mixed level skill tournament. And then hopefully it's not as far away as I think it will be, but that's what my sort of opinion on that is.
Yeah. I mean, that's also why visibility is so important, right? I mean, being able to showcase more non-male talent in a specific tournament that is not mixed, I think it's a great step, as you say, to move on to a then mixed teams idea in the end. But I've been involved in a league that was running where a lot of people from a drafting perspective were like, the narrative was like, yeah, draft girls. And the reality was just that there weren't a lot of girls that were up to the level of play. And competition is competition. You can never disregard skill level in that. And then I saw that the reaction from the crowd was like, no, but you're not seeing these girls. It's not about seeing the girls. Yes, seeing the girls is something that we're achieving there. But if they cannot compete at the level, it will drag down the competition in a way. And also just the way that was promoted made people like, it made the girls look like they just were so power hungry to claim their spot there and completely disregard the competition, which isn't what we want. That's not where we want to move, where we want to go with this. It's about drafting girls that are up to the skill level of the competition that they are competing in. And as you say, if you do that in a separate way, where they get to step out of their comfort zone in a good way, in a way that they will feel that they can learn and grow, it's much better than putting them up on a stage with guys that will at the end of the day be like, yeah, but like we lost because we had you on the team, you know.
Mhm. I agree, but also I think a lot of responsibility comes down to the TOs. So if you look at, so I'm a massive Counter-Strike fanboy, and I can remember back in the day when it was still played in basements and internet cafes, and then moving to huge majors. But ESL Impact season, like later season 4, has been incredible. So it's a women only season. GG for all is their tagline, and there was. I mean, I've been around Counter-Strike long enough to know when you see exceptional plays, and there's some of the I don't care. There's some of the greatest Counter-Strike players in the world playing in this tournament, but not enough people know about it. Not enough people know. I mean, ESL do their best, but why not at a major when you're filling a stadium? We say, look, this is what's happening. We're also going to include the final of ESL Impact in front of that stage. But that's where the sponsors have got to be brave enough. ESL have got to be brave enough, and then when the crowd, which still is fairly majority sort of male based, but there's still going to be other players of other genders in the audience that say, wow, actually, this is enjoyable to watch. They're super skilled. I'm getting invested. I'm following. I didn't know that org actually had a female team. I'm going to follow them. I'm going to buy their shit. I'm going to buy their jersey, buy their merch, and get it in front of more eyeballs before we. I think we're not there yet from a mixed team, but there are female-based orgs that are happening, and there are female-based tournaments that are happening, and they are positive. They do create a safe space, but we just need to get them out more. We need more people watching them and getting invested, and it does. And before long, you forget, because at the end of the day, I mean, granted, there's you'd follow the players, but what you're seeing on screen, because it's esports, you forget the gender of that person because you're invested in the entertainment, you're invested in the competition. And yeah, I think the TOs need to really do more. They need to push that forward a bit more, promote it a bit more. And whether or not that's ESL or Blast or some of the smaller TOs, because they are doing their part, but they need to put Riot. Yeah. What's it like in the Valve scene? What's I mean, I don't follow Valorant, so
You'll have game changes as well. So
Yeah.
you've got a similar structure, similar sort of model as such, but yeah, it's slightly different.
But at the same time, like we
little
just
bit.
had Champions, which was in LA, which is a massive conference, and then the week before that we had the finals of Game Changers, which was online. Like, why didn't we just fly out the girls to LA and have,
Well,
like
there
Chris said,
will
have that?
be an offline final to
Yeah.
close off the year. We're going to Sao Paulo.
Are we allowed to say that?
Yes, that is already out there,
Cool.
and we are like actively promoting that on the broadcast as well. That now currently the teams that are locked in for Europe. Well, today is the grand final of the Game Changers as well, and that will pretty much show us the last team that's going to represent Europe in Sao Paulo, and that's that's fantastic. Alongside G2, who have locked themselves in yesterday.
G2 looks so strong. Let's not talk about Valve for the rest of the panel. I think we definitely could, but we probably shouldn't. I think we're all in agreement with the sort of sponsorship levels. It's almost seen like the non-male game, or the other side of it is seen as a lesser form of entertainment. And really, it's not, because you watch it and you get the exact same feeling. You're seeing the exact same skill levels, the same dedication, the same hours put in to practice. Everyone else is making the same sacrifices as the traditional mainstream esports teams. So why are they seen as a lesser form? And I think it's just going to take one, maybe two really brave tournament organizers and sponsors to go, do you know what? Actually, yes, we're going to put the women on and the non-marginalized genders on, the marginalized genders on. We're going to have everyone play at the same venue. I mean, it's not going to cost them a lot of money to do, right? They already have the entire production crew out there. They already have the stages. They already have, the teams are already flying over. Just fly over a couple of extra teams. It'll cost a little extra, but the return on investment will be tenfold, and it'll get to showcase so much more. And I think that's what's going to happen for us to take another huge step. Definitely, everything is getting better. We're getting a more diverse esports scene and competition series for most games every day. It is getting better, and I think that's the important thing, is to say it's getting better. But there's still a lot more that can be done, and it's just going to take a couple of very brave sponsors and TOs to really sort of go, yep, we're going to do it. And once it's done, as you said, you'll forget that they were the first. It'll be just become normal. So we have like 3 minutes left. I don't think we have any starred questions. If anyone in the chat does have any questions, we have a couple of minutes left. But while we wait to see if anyone comes in, if you guys want to tell everyone watching where we can find you and how to reach out. Starting with Joy.
Oh, starting with me. All right. Well, I guess you can find me on my Twitter. There, you can always reach out to me. It's at xjoyk. And my Twitch would be I am Joy K. I stream there from time to time, but when I'm casting, it's probably different channels. But yeah, if you ever catch me streaming, come say hi.
Chris?
Yeah, you can. I'd say, as most people who know me, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's kind of my home. Yeah, now and again I'll jump on Twitter. Not so much recently, but yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM. Always happy to chat, help, mentor, give advice. Yeah, I've got enough grey hairs in my beard to at least have some wisdom, I think, from the esports space. But yeah, always happy to help.
Cool. And I guess for me, it's John Jackson 750 on most socials. And like Chris said, if you'll be able to find me on LinkedIn, feel free to drop me a message, or yeah, you can jump on Esports as well, and you'll find me somewhere on that.
Or in a Weatherspoons. That's where
Yeah,
you'll normally find, and then you'll find me sitting beside John instead of Weatherspoons. For me, it's at MZ192 on every social media platform. But we do have a question from Cat Scratch Place. Do we have any cool events that we're all a part of that represents many different groups in esports? I know me and John do a lot of panels and a lot of talks together. Me and Chris talk all the time, and me and Joy talk all the time. So there's a lot of synchronicity
We
between
were part of
all
the
of
Game
us.
Changers.
Yeah, we were, and sadly,
I
I
still
no
am,
longer.
but
You still are. I'm
I'm
just
still on
sadly
the
no longer.
broadcasting team. Yes.
Yes. I think there's things like EGX coming up. The Welsh Esports League is always looking for more and more people. Just to give John a humble shout out.
Thank you.
And Chris on LinkedIn is constantly just being one of the biggest pushers for diversity that I've seen on the platform. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The
In terms
wellspring
of events,
knowledge, he is.
he really is. So at the minute, I don't think there's one specific thing we're all parts of, but we're all sort of everywhere trying to cause chaos and push diversity and inclusion and just improve what it's like to be in esports every day. I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Well said.
Absolutely.
Colin did say I don't watch much esports, but I'd like to. Where's a good place to start? If you're into FPS, you go for your Counter-Strike or your Valorant. 3 of us on this panel all started off with Counter-Strike. Joe, I believe you were Heroes of the Storm, right?
I'm Heroes of the Storm, and I saw the Heroes Lounge logo being portrayed.
I've seen that, yeah.
That's a great start if you're looking for an amateur league where everyone is allowed to play of any sort of skill level within Heroes of the Storm.
Here's a Storm. So any sort of FPS, Valorant, Cisco, Siege is also a really fun one to watch. And then you got the likes of Rocket League, League of Legends. Just pick a game that you're interested in, and you'll find an esports in it. And I think that's the most important thing: is find something you enjoy, and then move the esports to that. Don't just go, oh, Counter-Strike's the biggest esports, I'm gonna watch that, when you don't like FPSs, because then you won't like esports. You got to find what game you enjoy and then move that way.
And look locally as well. Look to grassroots. It doesn't always have to be tier one tournaments that you're watching. And granted, you want to get involved in that and find a team that you can follow and get excited about. But look locally. Look what's going on in your back garden, grassroots wise. Get involved. Because I am absolutely sure that they would love some more assistance, help, good people. As gaming is from everybody, and esports everybody, so you will be welcomed with open arms, I'm sure.
Big time. Well, I think that's all we have time for now, guys. So thank you everyone for watching the panel. Thanks to Gaming Live for having us, and thanks to Remag for sponsoring this session. If you haven't heard, anyone who signs up to Remag and joins the gaming community, that's gaming, Gayming, before the end of October is in with a chance of winning an Xbox Series X. Simply scan the QR code down below John and Chris, and check out what else is happening across the platform. Thanks everyone for watching.
Just all.
Bye.
Bye.